Okay. Hi, Andrew. How you doing?
Chris, very well, thank you very much.
Right, good. Right, in this little recording, we're going to talk about Padlet, which is something that I've used in the past, and I wanted to talk about more about your experiences of using it with real students.
Okay.
So we'll look at the pros and cons of that.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I just want to ask you just a couple of questions, just to set a bit of context.
Sure.
About what you've been doing.
Okay.
So, first question is, who are you?
Okay.
What's your job title?
Yeah.
And what do you do here at South Bank?
Okay. So my name's Andrew Reid. I am division head. I'm head of the education division in the School of Law and Sciences. School in the School of Law and Social Sciences. Okay. And I'm head of academic programs here, but I teach. I'm module leader on a couple of modules, and some of the modules I'll talk about are modules where I'm module leader.
Okay.
I guess I'm also involved in the PGCE, which is the postgraduate teacher training program, which will become a bit relevant later on.
Okay. Right, great. So, what we're going to talk about is your use of Padlet.
Yeah.
Again, before we get into it, and we've got it there up on the screen at the moment.
Yeah.
Can you just describe to me what it actually, for somebody who's never heard of it or never seen it at all before, what exactly is it?
Okay, well, it's a kind of notice board, I suppose. Okay. It's online. It's some kind of, I guess, a kind of platform which allows people to engage online and add things to it.
Okay, so like a digital notice board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Beautifully expressed.
Okay,
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Okay, so what we'll do now is I can see that this is your sort of Padlet homepage.
Yeah.
And across the screen you've got various Padlets.
Yeah.
That's
correct.
What they're called. So I think maybe if you just took us into one of them and just showed it to us what it looks like.
Okay. So let's start. Let's have a look at. This is a Padlet here that I used last year, 17-18. So this is for the Padlet was used for project. So project is our third year dissertation module, double module.
Okay.
So
how long's the dissertation roughly?
7,500 words.
Okay.
It's a relatively, for us, we've got about 110 students on it, about 9 or 10 supervisors.
Okay, it's quite a large number of students and a large number of lecturers who are marking it.
Absolutely.
Right.
So this came about really because, so this was the second year that I was module leader for project, and I suppose we kind of picked up from the first year that there were potentially, if you've got a large number of lecturers involved, you've got the potential for different answers to questions. Right. And this was something we wanted to try and we wanted to kind of standardise the line about aspects of.
Okay, so if they were asking, so how long is the introduction, or how many references do I need to put in? The typical things that students would ask. Absolutely,
and it's because of the being a double module in the third year, it carries a whole weight for the final degree outcome, and therefore students perhaps are a bit more concerned about that kind of precision. Okay. We had a little bit in 16, 17, perhaps of students angling between different lectures, looking for the answer that they most wanted to hear.
The right answer.
Or the right answer.
I didn't mean the right answer for the student, not necessarily for the
absolutely.
lecturer.
So we this was a way of trying to manage that.
Right.
So should I just talk a little bit about how we set it up? I mean, the principle was that, well, actually one of the things we found was that we'd looked at using Padlets and bringing Padlets in quite close to the assignment deadline. So it was a strategy that came quite late in the module, but actually where we think it's worked more effectively is bringing it right at the very beginning of the module,
Okay.
So when you've already started talking about what the assessment might be, you're already fielding those kinds of questions.
Okay.
So it's what you might be struck with is that it's quite a lot. There's a lot of stuff in here, sort of content,
Right.
but that's over a long time. So it's
over 10 weeks.
Absolutely, and actually longer than that because of the way the project's spread is a double module over 2 terms. And so it's got a lot of content spread over a long time. The issue here is that the responses are all mine. So you've got a single source of responses, and that just kind of was a way of standardising everything and getting supervisors to engage with this as well in order to check that we were kind of standard in our responses was really useful.
Right. So how does it work then? The student posts one of these little post-it type sort of comments?
Absolutely. So the student goes on, there's a little plus thing down here, a little plus icon here. The student clicks on that and adds a question. And the model we went to was the student would add something like this. Oops, there you go. It's very touch sensitive. Would say something like this comment here. Sometimes they'd add a title. So within the Padlet, you can add a kind of emboldened title and then something else.
So that's a very specific question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The question is, do I need to comma after the full stop inside the brackets?
Yes.
Yeah. And then you've come back on that.
Yeah, and then so I would respond, and I'd always preface my response with a little A, meaning an answer.
Yeah.
Yes, you do need a comma in the brackets after et al, for example, Smith et al, comma 2012, and emphasising the italicisation, which is something that Harvard SBU guidance encourages. So it's kind of that simple thing.
Yeah.
They're not. A lot of these comments aren't really questions. Aren't really deal breakers. They're details. They're often quite. They're seeking something actually quite small and something precise.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of little things like this. Ethics forms. Do we need to attach our ethics form to the appendix? See previous responses. So I was kind of directing students back to previous responses, encouraging them to look at other comments that had already been launched on here. Up here, can we submit as a PDF? When I export to Word, the formatting goes a bit strange. Can I use it as a PDF? Yeah, you can do it as a PDF. So
it's nice from the student's perspective. They get a definitive answer, don't they, to these quite specific questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And a lot of the questions were about weren't seeking clarification about something that's written on the tin.
Right.
Can you further explain what you mean by this? It's actually I think maybe minimised the sort of myths that grow up around something as big as this about a kind of word of mouth rumour that this is the way to do it and this is the way that I've been told and that therefore that is sacrosanct and there can be no flexibility about that.
Right.
So it's been really handy there.
Okay.
But it's quite but it's a kind of there's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
That's something I was going to mention.
That's
Chris.
interesting. What's that on the? You've got like a white Padlet.
Yeah.
What's that?
So you can very easily add links on there. So this is a PDF link, and if I click on this, let's see if that works. Yeah, that's the old version, but that takes us in directly into the PDF
nice.
Harvard style stuff, which is kind of useful.
Yeah.
And if I remember, I can't remember if this is. This is actually that's active as well, so you can kind of click around in that. That's kind of nice. Kind of encouraging students to sort of take some responsibility for that kind of thing. Let me get rid of that again. So lots of little things here. Lots of questions about referencing. That's probably the most frequent stuff that came in.
Yeah.
Stuff about quoting questionnaires, etc.
etc. Was this a lot of work for you to answer all these questions? I mean,
I kind of think not really. I mean, I suppose it was. These are coming in maybe one every 2 or 3 days, and it will take me about a minute for each response.
Right.
So there's nothing really complicated there. The answers are very straightforward.
And I suppose the trade-off is that you don't necessarily you've got less questions about these specifics in the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking back at it. Some things I might respond slightly differently now. The question about methodology. you know, what tense you might use. I've kind of adapted my thinking about that a little bit now,
Okay.
but it was basically saying that actually these things aren't going to negatively impact on your mark. These are niceties.
Beyond the specifically answering the question, how
Yeah.
else do you use the Padlet?
Okay.
I mean, can you actually link this into your Moodle site, for example?
Well, if I go into my current Moodle site for projects, so I've got a link here. So here's, there we
Sorry,
go.
this is just getting a bit false. I knew actually you could actually do that, so
Voila.
just brought it up. So,
yeah, here's
okay,
the
right.
current project site here,
yeah,
and I've stuck a. This is just a screen grab here.
Yeah.
So this is not a live document. That's just an image that I plonked in here with a direct link
right.
there. But Chris, you were saying that actually you could go into your into your Padlet.
You can embed one actually.
That's a neat little thing.
But I mean, what you've done there is more than adequate, isn't it?
I think so.
They can just click on the link,
Yeah.
and then that will take them straight to the questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I suppose a lot of the questions are going to be repeated from
Absolutely.
previous
Yeah.
previous
I think
years.
I can't remember if somewhere maybe I put something on here about maybe a link to the old Padlet. No, not there. Somewhere here.
Right.
Yeah, there it is. There we go. There's the old Padlet
Okay.
is in there. So as
Yeah.
a kind of point of reference for current students, they can look back at the old
Right.
Padlet and see it there. So that's kind of quite useful.
Yeah.
Um,
And do you use it in the classroom at all?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So where we've got this is the current bunch of questions coming in, and what I tend to do is start each project lecture with a discussion of kind of latest Padlet queries.
Okay.
So it becomes a kind of nice discussion document just to make sure we're picking up what's
Right.
come up and what the concerns are. I guess a question might be kind of engagement with quick kind of face-to-face questions in the lecture, and I suppose that doesn't. That's an interesting idea. I mean, I suppose students aren't across the board keen to ask questions in front of everyone else. The Padlet's a really good place where they're voicing uncertainty,
Yeah.
I guess, and the Padlet allows for anonymity, and you can be wrong, and
Yeah.
and nobody knows who's asking the question. Obviously, if you're in the lecture and you're asking a question, you've got the fear that somebody else is going to think that you really ought to know the answer. So it's been really useful to kind of voice those things, and I get the sense that there's a range of. I don't know. It's because of the anonymity. I don't know who's asking the questions, but the range of questions suggests that it's quite a diverse in terms of their needs as students. It's quite a diverse group of students.
Okay. So it's not the same student asking the question.
I don't think so. No, they're very different
All
types
right,
of questions
okay.
that come through.
All right. On the original Padlet board, you
Yeah.
had some other Padlets up there as
yeah,
well. Are
okay.
they for different
Sure.
projects or other things?
Absolutely. So that from a dashboard, that gives you access to the other things. I've got a couple
Yeah.
of other things that I've used it for. So
Right.
the applying.
Let's have a quick look at some of those.
So this is applying to teach. So I mentioned earlier on that within.
So you've changed the background straight away.
Oh yes,
Considering that's
yeah. This is the
very
corkboard one, and this is a
Right.
different format. So you can
Yeah.
arrange your Padlet in all sorts of different ways. So for the project ones, I tend to have a kind of notice board that it kind of fills itself up in its own way and kind of finds spaces.
Well, it's just a more linear one.
This is a linear one.
chronologically
So the first one appears, the most recent one appears at the top, and so this is about students who are doing an undergraduate course, our education studies undergraduate course, who are thinking about applying for postgraduate teacher training, which is something else we run here.
Okay.
So they're asking questions:
How to progress,
how to apply.
Yeah.
Do we offer a secondary PGCE? No.
Okay.
Is there a deadline? I wrote a blog a little while ago about routes into teacher training, so there's a link. So again, you can put links
right,
in
so you
here.
put a link to your own blog there
Yeah.
or something. There,
So there's a kind of a little notice board again to
Right.
share stuff with
Yeah.
students about
nice,
information.
Nice pictures as well.
And yeah, it's a really nice.
Right.
So websites and things, you can add links to there. That's the government's. So there's a student asking about a particular federation of schools, and I did a bit of investigation to find out who they were and kind of answered their questions. So So again, that's informative. It's about employability, I guess. So that's kind of useful.
And then maybe could have a quick look at one of the other.
Yeah,
Padlets.
there's one other here. So Dream Classrooms was just a simple. This is just a really simple use of Padlet. This was a group of further education students who might be thinking of applying to LSBU, so did a little session with them around Dream Classrooms, and just asked them what their expectations of a Dream Classroom would be, and anticipated that they might
free
not,
chicken.
absolutely, they might not want to say anything in front of each other. So the Padlet's a really good way of getting them to kind of voice their ideas, and it's incredibly.
Can we bring it up on the phones? So it's an app as well.
It's just an app. Yes, I've got. I've just got a little app here on my. There's a little Padlet thing there on my phone,
right?
And I can just go into that, and there we go. Hi, Andrew. Happy Wednesday. Oops, that's a bit out of focus, but you'll see. And all my separate Padlets are on there, so I can.
Okay. So if you could actually respond to one of your students' questions on the app on your phone, just while you're on the bus coming to work or something.
Absolutely. Right. So it's there, and I can add additional comments on there, and of course students can have this on there.
So they do the same when they're adding a point to the Padlet.
And this is how I use it in lectures if they want to add a question in a lecture.
So you're literally asking them to get their phones out.
I'm literally asking them to get their phones out, and for this group of 16, 17-year-olds, that was just get your phone out and let's start putting some stuff on here. And it worked really well, and it again, I think it got a nice.
And they didn't have any problems doing that at all?
No, I did a little bit of running around and making sure. Probably the most complicated thing is just getting the URL. The URL the first time. When you haven't really done it, it's a bit might be a little bit more confusing. But actually, just getting a lot larger there. That's the only complicated thing. If they've got Padlet already, it's very straightforward.
Okay, lovely. All right, those are three really good examples, and they're quite different, aren't they? As well. So the one's a sort of Q&A questions.
Yes.
I think the second one was more of a sort of information stream, and this one's a sort of classroom activity. Really,
absolutely.
Kind of brainstorming activity.
Yeah, indeed.
So it can be used in lots of different ways.
Yeah,
that's good. All right. Okay, I think there maybe stop there, but I've just got one more question before we do finish up, and that's. What sort of feedback do you get from the students? Do they like doing this? Can they see the point of it? Do they?
I haven't got particular feedback from this year. Last year was really positive. They really liked. That was the first time we used it, and they were very positive about the use of the Padlet in projects in particular. That got a lot of feedback. I've had a couple of. I note that the slightly younger students here are doing a lot of liking, and I get very occasional likes with the undergraduates, but not very many.
I suppose they're so used to it on Facebook or what have you. And does it have any advantages for you as the lecturer? I mean, I can see you talked about when you've got 10 or 11 lecturers and they kind of standardises the responses. Are there any other benefits at all you can see?
I guess breadth of participation is really good. I get a sense that more students are engaging. It flags up, for me it flags up particularly where there might be misunderstandings or anxieties, and that kind of feeds into what my planning might consist of. So, if we get there's a lot of queries around referencing, for example, so that kind of flags up that maybe, although these are third years and they've had a lot of input on referencing, maybe a referencing workshop I can throw in one of those at some point, just to make sure they're all
so it's an impact on the curriculum as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, brilliant. Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you very much for taking the time out.
No problem at all.
Thank you.